He wasn't supposed to be like them. Michael Corleone was the cleaned son in a dirty family. The war hero in uniform, the one who told his American girlfriend, "That's my family, that's not me." But one night in an empty hospital corridor, one dinner in a quiet Italian restaurant, one explosion on a dusty Sicilian road, and one cold decision at a church altar slowly turned the outsider into the new Don behind. Every denial, every lie told for the family, and every door he closed on the truth. Michael wasn't just protecting the Corleones, he was locking himself inside the very cage he once despised. In this video, we'll quietly follow that descent step by step through 10 chapters that trace his journey from the sun standing outside the banquet table to the door closes and a new Don Corleone. Part 1. The sun standing outside the banquet table. Amid the lively wedding with Italian music, red wine, spinning dances, and the line of guests constantly filing into the dark office to ask for favors from the Don, he chooses a seat slightly off to the side. His crisp World War II uniform makes him look more American than even Kay, and it makes him out of place among the Corleone men in dark suits and ties, their posture carrying that familiar hardness of men in the business. When he tells Kay the story of his father making an offer he can't refuse, he recounts it with a calm, almost detached tone, as if it were an anecdote about someone else. At the end, he adds, "That's my family. That's not me." That final line is the first wall he builds between himself and the family, a wall of denial that what happens in that dark office has anything to do with his own blood. From his point of view, Don Vito is at once the gentle father who cradles grandchildren and the mysterious figure the newspapers call a crime boss. Unable to reconcile those two images, he chooses to step back and treat the mafia world as their business. His life is framed around a more American path: college, the army, a non-Italian girlfriend. But every time Kay asks a little deeper, his gaze flickers away. The small smiles and subject changes become a habit, as if, by not naming the darkness, he can keep it from staining his future. Part 2. The office door and his first lesson in power. The thick wooden door separates the sunlit garden from the room where whispered requests are made. From his seat, he occasionally catches a glimpse of his father's outline, Tom Hagen moving about, Sonny pacing. He understands each person's place. Sonny is hot-headed but loyal. Tom is calm and respectable. Fredo is fragile, and he is the one not in the business. Not stepping through that door isn't because he's forbidden, but because he imposes that limit on himself. That room belongs to another world, where decisions he wants no part of are made, yet even from outside, he watches closely. Every bow of the head, every hand laid on a shoulder by Don Vito imprints on his memory like a wordless language of power. Inside, favors and threats intertwine. Outside, he holds Kay's hand, retelling the stories with all the dark details carefully removed. That habit of editing reality is a repeated negative behavior. He learns early to adjust the truth to fit the image he wants to maintain in front of the woman he loves and in front of himself. Part 3. The hospital night, stepping over an invisible line. The road to the hospital feels darker than any battlefield. New York isn't as noisy as usual, or perhaps his ears are focused only on the echo of his own footsteps. The empty corridor, his father's unguarded room, the lack of bodyguards, everything chills him. A lifetime of hearing about the family's caution, about how Don Corleone is never left exposed, suddenly collides with this moment of vulnerability. Here, he no longer has the luxury of standing on the sidelines. When he leans close to the unconscious Don Vito and whispers, "I'm with you now," he's not just comforting his father. He's shattering the old line, "That's not me." The actions that follow, pushing the hospital bed, repositioning the room, pulling an acquaintance to the doorway to stand as a fake bodyguard, are precise and controlled, not at all like someone outside the business. He gives orders, and others obey. Then the slap from the police captain falls, a brutal, humiliating strike that smashes straight into his illusion of being different. Knocked down outside his father's room, he doesn't turn away or swallow the humiliation to stay clean. For the first time, he fixes the man's face in his memory as a debt that must be repaid. Beneath his calm, a new pattern starts to form. Instead of simply avoiding violence, he begins to see retaliation as a necessary option for protecting his family. Part 4. The Italian Restaurant, the Moment of No Return. On the way to the restaurant with Sollozzo and the police captain, his mind runs like a cold machine, mapping the route, memorizing the restroom's location, picturing himself standing up, pulling the gun, walking away. But beneath that calculation, he is still the son desperately trying to prevent his father's murder in a war the old man has fought his entire life. The mantra, "It's not personal, it's strictly business." The justification he has heard at the family table repeats in his head, numbing fear and guilt. In the restroom, reaching for the gun hidden behind the tank, his hand trembles slightly. He stands at the intersection of two selves. The soldier who tried to live a legitimate life, and the man about to do exactly what his family has always done when he returns to the table. The distant rumble of the train and the clinking of cutlery fade as if they belong to a different world. When it's over, what shocks him is not only the aftermath, but the fact he executed the plan with chilling efficiency. Realizing he is capable of that, he knows the door back to a normal life has closed. A new pattern takes hold, using logic and the excuse for the family to legitimize harsh actions. It will return again and again whenever he faces hard choices. Part 5. Sicily. A peaceful dream that carries mafia shadows in the hills of Sicily, along dusty roads and under distant church bells. He feels as if he stepped back to some beginning before his father became a don, before he pulled a trigger. He loves Apollonia with a tender, almost innocent affection. Their wedding glows with sunlight, white dresses, and folk dances, a world apart from the tight-wired tension of Long Island. For a moment, he almost believes he can start over and live as an ordinary young husband. But the wary reflexes and ability to sense danger never leave him. He keeps bodyguards, scans the surroundings as he walks, keeps his distance from strangers. The mafia has shaped his instincts. Even here, he cannot sleep with both eyes closed. Each letter from America, each piece of news about his father and brothers, tugs him back into the old orbit. When the car explodes, tearing away his young wife and shattering his peaceful dream, he doesn't scream or collapse into public grief. He folds the pain inward. His eyes go empty. The defensive pattern of numbing his feelings repeats. He refuses himself the luxury of weakness and uses this tragedy as yet another proof that he has no path back to an ordinary life. Part 6. Return. Promises to Kay, and the legitimate mask. Standing at Kay's door after years away, he is the calm of someone who seems to have settled everything behind him, even though in truth, everything is about to become more tangled. He talks about a clean future, bringing the family business into legality, moving into respectable enterprises, letting their children grow up as regular Americans. He says nothing about Sicily, nothing about Apollonia, nothing about the acts he has committed for the family. He edits more ruthlessly than ever. Promises become a polished shell that hides the cracks. This is the same negative behavior that appeared when he first told Kay about his family at the wedding, now refined and amplified. At new family dinners with Kay, Connie, and his mother, he sits in the seat that once belonged to Don Vito. The change in position is more than symbolic. Every pair of eyes in the house now turns to him for decisions. He must speak as the heir, yet in front of Kay, he tries to remain the Michael from before, the man who once said he was different from his family. When Kay connects suspicious deaths and disappearances to his secret meetings, he falls back on the familiar formula: denial, reassurance, promises that everything is moving toward peace. The pattern of using smiles and pledges to lock away the truth repeats, pulling Kay into a fog where she must either believe him or walk away, something he knows she isn't ready to do. Part 7. The Family Under Michael, Protection or Control. As Don Vito weakens, his own role grows clearer. He isn't explosive like Sonny, lost like Fredo, or diplomatic like Tom. He is a blend of cold logic and restraint. With Connie, he sees a sister being humiliated and beaten by her husband. His urge to protect the family burns inside him, but he doesn't rush in fists first like Sonny. Instead, he observes, files it away, waits for the right moment. With Fredo, he sees weakness and incompetence, but also a desperate need to be valued. He embraces his brother and whispers, "You're my older brother." Yet deep down, he classifies Fredo as someone who can never be trusted with crucial tasks. Every internal decision carries two faces. He shields the family from external enemies, but also begins to manage his relatives like pieces on a board. The habit of rationalizing everything for the family is repeated, whether pushing Tom aside to protect him from heavier things or keeping Carlo close almost as a test. He convinces himself that he is acting for the greater good, not out of self-interest. To him, the family needs someone willing to bear the sins, and he accepts that role. The cost is that each close relationship slowly hardens into a component of his power structure. Part 8. The Purge and the Oath at the Altar. When it's time to clean house, he plans everything with frightening precision. Every name, location, and moment fits together like a flawless equation. In his mind, this is no longer about temper or simple revenge. It is a strategic move to ensure there will be no more attacks on his father in marketplaces, no more beatings of his sister, no more betrayals by supposed allies. Once again, the familiar refrain rises. It's not personal, it's strictly business. But now, it doesn't sound like an excuse. It has become a governing principle. In the church, as he stands as Godfather during the baptism, he is surrounded by candles and sacred vows. He answers, "I renounce evil. I believe in God," while outside, under his orders, other hands pull triggers. The parallel is the climax of his inner divide, one half clothed in morality, the other carrying out ruthless commands. The most unsettling part is that he no longer trembles as he did in the Italian restaurant. He's learned to stand calmly while both images coexist. From here on, guilt no longer erupts in crisis. It settles like sediment at the bottom of his soul, quiet, yet never gone. Part 9. Facing Kay. The last crack in the illusion. After the coordinated killings, a heavy silence settles over the house. Kay looks at him with eyes no longer naive. She has pieced together news clippings, whispers, and the timing of his absences. When she finally asks directly, it is not just suspicion, but a plea from a wife who wants to know who she is really living with. He has a rare chance to break the old pattern. For the first time, he could tell the truth, confess, and seek a path other than lies. But he chooses a firm, cold denial. The habit of reshaping reality to fit the image he wants to keep prevails. Kay is shattered, yet clings to his words, partly from love, partly from fear of what acknowledging the truth would mean. He sees that he has won the argument, but lost as a husband. Still, he accepts that loss as a necessary sacrifice. The family, as an organization, must stand, Even if the family as a marriage fractures inside him, the justification for the family repeats once more, thicker and heavier, sealing off any exit for a more vulnerable, honest version of Michael Part 10. The door closes and a new Don Corleone. As the men come in one by one to kiss his hand and address him as Don Corleone, he sits with a face nearly devoid of expression. The image mirrors Don Vito's position years before, but the eyes are different, less gentle, deeper, harder to read. He has completed the circle from the young man who insisted "that's not me" to the one at the center of every deal, carrying the family on his shoulders more heavily than anyone ever asked him to. On the other side of the door, Kay catches a brief glimpse of him before the heavy wood swings shut. That final closing door is the distilled symbol of all the negative patterns that have repeated in his life. Denial, cutting off dialogue, using silence and distance to keep the one he loves safely outside his world. And outside the truth, he believes he is protecting her from the darkness, just as he believes he is protecting the family with every ruthless decision. In reality, he is locking himself in, choosing to live in a dim room where only power, paranoia, and bowed heads remain. Through his eyes, the Corleone family is no longer just a criminal empire. It is a gilded cage he both hated and embraced, until he realizes he has become the lock that seals the door, not only against outsiders, but against his own heart.